Hello. We're just in a volcano right now. But, like, don't mind. Like, I have bubble. We are safe. Alright. Anyways, let's begin our story. So, Deku, while being born, uh, was this tiny, tiny aura went through the room, and everyone kind of felt it and was like, hmm. But then we just chalked it up to, not Deku having a quirk or anything, but uh, Deku Deku is punching, beating, punching, beating, punching. Oh, and everyone just chalks up to life being born, and it gives the universe a bit of joy. So it made that known. Yes, people. A lot. Inko is very superstitious, and okay, which is going to be play a part into what the story is. And Deku is then we skip a couple years later, and then Deku looks at this. Zoro would probably. Okay, Deku, of course, punches. Well, Deku then sees this TV show about this guy who uses only two swords, and Deku thinks, can you use three swords if you just. And then Deku. Then inspires Deku to use three sword style. Remember, Deku pretty much loves to in, uh, work on people's powers. Even if it's not a quirk, he still likes to work on it. Like, even in technology, he still likes seeing it being worked on and how it works. So, of course, techniques of swords are probably one of his biggest forces. And since he's never seen another person use three swords, he thinks, maybe I could do the first to show people that three swords could be strong. And yes, Deku then goes to a area, starts with one sword, bodies someone. He bodies the Grand Master, the guy that's in front of the lodge. Bro just bodied them with one wooden sword. Then he grabbed a second one and then bodied the guy above that guy. Then he finally put the sword into his mouth. But this time, he didn't know how to use the sword until this one girl shows up with her one sword style. But of course, Deku just assumes that the girl is actually gonna be the first challenge he's ever faced. For some reason, he just feels that in his soul. So then Deku goes to fight the girl with his three sword style. Then finally he realizes that how to use his three swords. And then because usually he was just using his two swords. But now he knows how to use his three. Yeah, so a lot of Deku just. They're both like just slashing each other with their wooden swords. Obviously it's a bit unfair because the girl has a metal sword. I forgot to mention that, yeah. She had a metal sword. And she obviously starts breaking his sword, but, Deku just keeps whacking the blade until it dulls, and then that's the opening Deku needs for her. Well, she gets shocked because he's dulling her blade with just well, wood. And then Deku takes his chance to try to sweep her, but she hops over his sweep and then pops him on the head, actually defeating Deku. By the way, Deku was way skilled than every single swordsman that uh, in the world besides that girl. But this is like a very high dojo. They only take the best. They don't even take payment. They just take the best. And of course, Deku being the second best. Until Deku just starts training even harder than usual. Oh yeah, and later, Deku after training, bro's arms are busting like they're about to explode with fury. Oh yeah, now Deku heads to his. Where does he go? Oh, Deku then uh, sees one of his classmates, I guess. Oh, so Deku uh, eats some eats some. Just eats. He doesn't know what to do. He really hasn't dealt with a lost one before, because he doesn't know his dad is dead. By the way, yes, he did die by a car crash, not being gone from the area. And then Deku starts whacking up and starts whacking a tree with his bare fist, and then starts making them bleed. Deku really doesn't know how to deal with loss because he hasn't had to deal with loss. And Deku just uh, finally relaxes, and then he walks towards the Grand Master, basically his daughter, asking if he could have her blade because she's the one person that could actually beat him, and he would like to show respect to the person that first beat him. The Grandmaster, of course, being the good friend uh, he is, because they're more equals than student master. And then he actually gives Deku the sword, and he grabs it, crying and telling him that he will never. If this blade ever breaks, I will commit uh, seppuku, or is it Sudoku? Sudoku. It's not seppuku. It's Sudoku. I got it. I swear to God, if I got that wrong, please correct me. Please. And of course, Deku will actually abide by that. It's Deku. He doesn't go back on a promise. Oh, and then Deku just gets news. Then takes his two blades that he owned because he just had those, and then he actually just leaves. Actually, no, he doesn't leave. A couple years later. A couple years later. Actually, a lot of years later. Like Deku's like 20 now, and Deku's just wandering the area on a boat. Although he's been gone for like I think about like 14 years. He's been gone for 14 years. He finally comes back after fighting a whole lot of swordsmen. He's actually very popular among people, but people never get to catch an autograph or get to meet him because he just always just heads out after he beats his opponent, always bowing and telling them that they need to work on their techniques. Then he heads out, and he always leaves before anyone can find him. Okay, then now. Mm. Then Deku heads over to well, then Deku hops off his boat and then sees uh, a villain. And then he sees this a very blonde guy. By the way, he does not know who Bakugo is. And that's Bakugo, of course. And he just explodes the villain, and then he says he will always be here for anyone who needs help, even though he's, a bit of a jerk, as a very bad personality after out of hero work, like Enji does, and also has bad. Yeah, he basically just becomes Endeavor, but like Dynamite, he just becomes the he becomes Endeavor. He has a very bad marriage, and he has actually 3 kids, and one of them died. I legit just made an Enji, and Zoro just says to Bakugo, well, Dynamite, because that's who he hears being cheered. Uh, do you want to fight? And then Deku grabs onto one of his swords. This sword that looks awfully ancient. Those 2 blades he originally had, they've been broken a lot, so he just got new ones. Since he got so much money from the winnings. When he won. Okay, so he gets the winnings but leaves afterwards. But people never find him, somehow. Like, they just completely wrecks, uh, oh, Baku says, only if you're a villain. Which Baku is obviously really hoping that the guy is a villain so he can hit him. Because he's pissed that he's trying to, freaking try and show that he's stronger, even though Baku thinks, no, he's not stronger than me. I'm the #1 hero. Until, Deku doesn't show he's a villain. Well, he actually does do something a bit evil. He cuts a... Well, he doesn't kill anyone, but he throws a car in the air, cuts it, and then says, is that evil? And Baku says, it's destruction of property, so... Then he gets into a stance. Yeah. And then he gets one... Then he puts out one for all and then just explodes. Exploding bomb. Not like that. You get that out of your mind. Explodes towards Deku. Like, stop. And then Deku is a bit surprised because this is the first person who's actually been able to hit him in a while. Obviously, Deku is just unfazed by the explosion. Shirt off because that was a massive explosion to the torso. And then Baku sees how absolutely toned this guy is. And realizes how fucked he is because he's not as toned as this guy. And you're wondering why he thinks that. Well, then Deku just pulls out his blades. Then Baku sees he has a third one. I'm wondering if he's gonna put that one. As expected, he put it into his mouth, and yeah. Ooh, and then, actually no, he only pulls out the 2 swords to say, "I'm gonna test you if you can handle these." And then Deku just starts slashing at Bakugo, actually cutting him a lot. And then he starts chopping him with his hilts, and then Baku is starting to understand what he can do, so he finally starts to like fight back and is actually able to handle the 2 swords. And then Deku puts the white blade into his mouth and pulls out the other black one, the purple one, purple hilt one. Then just decides, so how about now? If you're wondering how he's talking with a sword in his mouth, stop asking questions. So Baku tries to, explode another explosion towards Deku, but Deku this time just cuts through the explosion. Like, everyone just gets, like, gobsmacked because they legit saw him cut an explosion. And not physical item. He cut it. He's fought a lot of people that can do the trick he can do. Yeah, there are a lot of people with explosion quirks. Like, it's not rare. Deku just appears behind Baku with, blitzing, and then Baku gets cut all over the place. Well, actually, then he sheathed one of his blades in a really stylized style. And then, yeah, just killed him. Yeah, Deku basically Deku knocks out Baku. Not dead. Oh, and then Deku just leaves. Yeah, and then he becomes a vigilante. Yeah, Deku, this is basically just a one-shot because what's the, and then he just starts cutting through a lot of then he just starts cutting through villains. He's actually killing some of them because they've done a bit too, I think, a bit too bad. And then he just cuts their heads off. If you're wondering why Zoro would, why, a person that is like Zoro would cut a person's head off, he's done that before, I think. And then, yeah, Deku just starts murdering a bunch of people, villains, of course, but then eventually Baku recovers from all the cuts. Yeah, it took him a while to recover from that. Obviously, Shoto Todoroki has tried to stop him because he's the second number one hero. And he's failed multiple times, but this time Zoro, Deku isn't as, harsh to him as Baku was because he sees there's a good character in him. And Deku just starts. And then Deku, at one point, when Shoto and Baku actually popped up on him, he then shows them a new not a new technique. That's a new tech. How would I show a new technique that well, of course, knew before this, but I want to show you it. Then he fully puts armor mid hockey all over his body. Also, there's not goddamn way that that's not visible. That's very visible. Like it would look disgusting without it. Okay, so Deku beats him. Deku just doubly wins. Good job, Deku. Of course, Deku just starts. Well, then just bodies them with just two cuts and then takes him out. Yeah, they used to just keep losing to Deku, and Deku's just chilling. Until guess who pops up again? Shigaraki, but like way older, and is like I think he's in his 40s now. Actually, he's in he's like next to his, actually, I think he's in his 40s now. He's 40 now. And then and then is finally shown to be alive from, actually, let's get a flashback real quick. Bakugo was at a small young age killed All for One, but Shigaraki was let go because All for One was taken from him from but sadly that's what they thought happened. But actually, it just lay dormant back. It just went dormant back into him, so people would let him live. It's a strategy of All for Ones he's done multiple times, where he makes he makes them think he's dead, and then he's powerless to stop them, and then he just completely murders them a couple years later. And that is exactly what Shigaraki's about to do, because he is All for One now. He is no Shigaraki or Tenko, no. Nah, nah, nah. It's just All for One now. Okay, Deku just, Yeah, and then Shigaraki actually has been evolving his body to the point where basically explosions and anything that can, yeah, basically explosion or anything that burns him, it just it's unfazable to him. Fire is basically not his weakness anymore, but not cutting. And so Shigaraki destroys, actually walks into a idiot area, takes off his coat, and then shows that he was Shigaraki, the symbol of fear. Now everyone gets horrified, but then they remember he lost his quirk, so they start getting less horrified until he puts his hand to the ground, and then they all disintegrate. And then Shigaraki murders children, man, woman, dogs, cats. He's a menace. And then Deku hops into the sky because he saw the ground being destroyed. Seeing where it was coming from, then he just uses a technique of his where he just spins. Alright, so then Deku, body. Zoro starts to fight Shigaraki with minimal difficulty. Actually, he actually is putting some difficulty in it, like mid diff right now. He's which means he's in full conqueror body. His swords are fully coated in hockey, and he has foresight on. Yeah, then Deku just starts killing Shigaraki easily, by the way. And eventually he gets his sword through his head. So Shigaraki starts to, groan in pain until Deku just actually forces hockey onto Shigaraki. It's not Shigaraki's hockey, it's his own hockey. So it just freezes the blade inside of Shigaraki, and then he just stops moving. Yeah, it's a pretty quick part, honestly. I really didn't know what to post, and I didn't think Zoro, the One Piece character, would be easily defeated or attacked. And you're thinking, well, what if you just let him evolve his power? Then he would just be too overpowered at the end, and it would be boring at the end. So I just made it a one shot, so it'd be less boring. But that's all I got for you today. So I might post another video later today, but you'll have to see later. Like, subscribe, hit the post notification bell. I don't really believe you should on this video. Any other video, I think they're better. But bye.